This is a worm, and this is also a worm. They might sound the same, but in reality, they live in two almost entirely different worlds. One lies still beneath the damp soil, eating decaying leaf fragments and trying not to be spotted by birds. The other hides at the bottom of the ocean, waiting, sensing the slightest vibrations. And when the time comes, it strikes so fast that the prey doesn't even realize what just happened. Both are worms, but one is a fragile creature with almost no ability to defend itself, while the other is a terrifying predatory machine. What created this difference? Why does the ocean turn the simplest creatures into the stuff of nightmares? And more importantly, how many more creatures like this are hiding beneath the water that we have never seen? Comparing terrestrial and marine worms. If you look at an earthworm, you will see one of the simplest lifestyles in nature. They do not hunt, they do not fight, and they have no complex strategies. They simply dig, eat, and survive. Their food consists of decomposed organic matter, an almost endless resource in the soil. And because there are not many other species directly competing for this food source, earthworms hardly need to evolve any special abilities. They do not need to be faster, stronger, or smarter. Their survival strategy is not to become the strongest individuals, but to become the most numerous. However, when shifting to the ocean environment, everything changes completely. Underwater, there is no easy mode like on land. Every creature must compete, and the highest value food source is not dead organic matter, but living organisms. This forces marine worms to completely change their way of life. Instead of waiting, they must hunt. Instead of avoiding, they must confront. And as prey becomes faster, stronger, and more dangerous, predators must also evolve accordingly. This is no longer a peaceful life underground, but a harsh battle for survival where only the best adapted creatures can survive. The bobbit worm, the hidden predator. The bobbit worm is one of the clearest testaments to how an environment can transform a creature. With a length that can exceed 3 meters, it is one of the most terrifying worms in the ocean. But what makes it dangerous is not just its size, but how it hunts. Most of its body is always buried deep in the sand, exposing only a small portion with tentacles that sense movement. These tentacles act as extremely sensitive sensors, capable of detecting any creature swimming by. And when the signal is triggered, the attack happens almost instantly. Its speed is so fast that the human eye can barely follow it. It does not chase its prey, nor does it stalk in the usual way. It just waits, and when the time is right, it strikes in a split second. What is even more terrifying is that it does not really know what it is eating. It has no eyes in the traditional sense, only the ability to sense light. Therefore, anything that passes close enough can become a target. After attacking, it tries to drag its prey down into the sand. If the prey is too large, it simply bites off a chunk and retreats. There have been cases where it swallowed large prey whole, demonstrating its incredible strength. And although humans rarely become targets, its bite can still cause serious injury. What makes many people shudder the most is not its strength, but its ability to hide. There are stories of bobbit worms accidentally appearing in home aquariums, hiding within coral rocks. For months or even years, it silently lives under the gravel, and the tank owner only realizes something is wrong when fish start mysteriously disappearing. By the time the truth is discovered, it is usually too late. Why marine worms evolved into monsters? This difference is not a coincidence. It is the result of millions of years of evolution under entirely different pressures. On land, earthworms live in a relatively stable environment. Food sources are easy to find, there is little competition, and there are not many terrifying predators. But in the ocean, especially in ecosystems like coral reefs, everything is completely different. This is one of the most competitive environments on Earth. Every creature is trying to eat or avoid being eaten. In that context, merely eating dead organic matter is not enough. This nutrient source is too poor and cannot support large growth. In contrast, a live fish contains much higher energy and nutrition. This makes hunting a far more effective strategy. And once on the path of predation, everything begins to change. The larger and stronger the prey, the more the predator must evolve to keep up. This leads to the development of stronger jaws, larger muscles, and more sophisticated hunting strategies. But the most important factor remains physics. On land, gravity is a major limitation. A worm's soft body cannot support a large size. If an earthworm were several meters long, it would be unable to move and would practically collapse under its own weight. But in the water, buoyancy helps support the body, eliminating most of this limitation. This allows marine worms to grow to massive sizes without facing similar issues. They can have thicker muscles, stronger jaws, and more complex body structures without being restricted by gravity. This is exactly why the ocean can produce such bizarre and terrifying creatures. The impact of environment and gravity. Water not only reduces the effects of gravity, but also opens up possibilities that are impossible on land. When the body no longer has to bear its entire own weight, worms can develop in entirely new ways. They can become longer, thicker, and stronger without facing the physical constraints found on land. This affects not only their size, but also how they move and hunt. In the water, movement becomes more agile, and water resistance can be used to generate powerful attacks. At the same time, the aquatic environment brings other factors such as currents, pressure, and temperature, all of which help shape the evolutionary process. Marine worms do not just adapt to their environment, they utilize it to become more efficient creatures. This explains why the same group of organisms can evolve in two completely different directions based solely on their habitat. The fireworm, the toxin strategy. Not all marine worms choose the path of becoming large and strong. Some species opt for a different approach, becoming dangerous through toxins. The fireworm is a perfect example of this strategy. At first glance, it does not look intimidating. Its body is colorful, with soft white bristles running along its sides, making it look almost harmless. But those very bristles are weapons. They are actually tiny, needle-like structures filled with potent neurotoxins. Upon contact, these needles break off and embed themselves into the skin, releasing toxins directly into the nervous system. The sensation it causes is not ordinary pain, but an intense burning feeling as if the skin is on fire. This is why it is called the fireworm. Unlike the bobbit worm, the fireworm does not hide. It uses bright colors to warn predators that it is dangerous. This is a completely different strategy, but equally effective. The ribbon worm, the longest creature on Earth. If the bobbit worm represents strength, the ribbon worm represents an entirely different form of evolution. This is the longest creature ever recorded, with a length that can exceed 50 meters. But instead of being thick and strong, it is thin and soft. This makes many people wonder, why evolve in this direction? The answer lies in how it breathes. The ribbon worm has no lungs or gills. It absorbs oxygen directly through its skin. Therefore, increasing its surface area is extremely important. By elongating its body into a thin ribbon, it maximizes its ability to absorb oxygen. In addition, it has a very unique hunting method. It can shoot out a sticky structure from its body to trap prey, like a living net. This is an effective way to hunt without having to rely on muscle strength. The giant tube worm, living on bacteria. In the deepest parts of the ocean, where light cannot reach, exists a completely different kind of worm. Giant tube worms live near hydrothermal vents, where temperatures and chemicals would kill most other creatures. Amazingly, they have no mouth, no stomach, and no eyes. Instead, they survive thanks to symbiotic bacteria inside their bodies. These bacteria use toxic chemicals from the environment to generate energy, and the worm provides a habitat for them. This is an incredibly unique symbiotic relationship. The worm does not need to hunt or digest food. All it has to do is survive and provide the conditions for the bacteria. This allows them to grow rapidly and adapt to an environment where most other organisms cannot survive. The zombie worm, eating whale bones. When a whale dies and sinks to the ocean floor, it does not just disappear. It becomes a source of life for thousands of other creatures. And among them, the zombie worm is one of the most bizarre. They do not eat meat, they eat bone. They develop root-like structures to penetrate the bone and secrete acid to break it down. Then, bacteria inside their bodies help them absorb the nutrients. Even stranger is their life cycle. The males do not fully develop but live as parasites inside the females. They do not eat, they do not move, they only exist to reproduce. This is one of the strangest ecosystems ever recorded, and it can only exist in the ocean environment. Ultimately, what makes the difference between terrestrial and marine worms is not the worms themselves, but the environments that shape them. On land, they are simple, passive, and almost harmless. Underwater, they become bizarre, diverse, and sometimes terrifying creatures. The ocean not only changes how they live, but also completely changes how they evolve. And as we explore deeper, we realize more and more that what we know about the underwater world is still very limited. How many more creatures like this are still hiding in the dark? If you found this video interesting, please hit like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future content.